I would like to share her story with you as soon as I opened my phone here. Representative Wendy Thomas is a two-term representative for the town of Merrimack, New Hampshire, population of 28,000. She has been a water warrior fighting against corporate pollution, particularly PFAS chemicals, since 2016. Wendy sits on the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, where she defends renewables in New Hampshire and protections for climate change. She crusades for social justice and is an ally, as well as an outspoken proponent for the therapeutic cannabis program. Wendy lives in Merrimack with her husband. She has 6 children who are currently all young adults and ready to challenge and change the world in positive directions. She is immensely proud of them. And I'm pleased to be able to introduce Representative Wendy Thomas.
Thank you. I cannot tell you how important it is to be aware of PFAS. Now, it's not just PFAS, it's PCBs and BPAs. All of these are considered forever chemicals. So, as I mentioned, as I introduced, I'm Representative Wendy Thomas, and I live in Merrimack. So we do not have a landfill problem. We have an industrial problem that's similar to this. We have a company called Saint-Gobain that has been polluting our town for decades. In 2016, they self-reported that there was a high level of PFAS in our local water. Now, let me give you a little clue. For a company to self-report that they have violated industry standards means that they knew that there was a lot out there. So I joined a local group in Merrimack, and we got education out to people. We gave them charts, we gave them articles, we gave them statistics, and those of us that were concerned, we advocated, testing for the wells. Now, the state of New Hampshire initially said that only people within a diameter of half a mile from this company needed to be concerned. They did some testing, and they said, oop, our bad. It's really only within a mile that people need to be concerned. Our house is 3 miles from Saint-Gobain. We have a private well. I had it privately tested, and the results were that our private well was so contaminated, we had to shut it down immediately. And I have 6 children, and at the time they were young and they were living at home. This is 2016. So we installed a full house filtration system. We were very fortunate that we had the funds to do that. It was about $5,000 that we paid for because this corporation poisoned our water. And I ran for state rep in 2018, won, and so I was a state rep doing, we'd be up at the State House. There were 3 of us actually that were water warriors that ran, and we won to advocate against PFAS. So we ran on educating people. We would sit down with people, hi, I'm Representative Thomas. Do you know about PFAS? Let me tell you about PFAS. We were able to get the MCLs, and I mentioned it in that show, the maximum contamination levels lower than 70%, because 70% is too much. Right now, currently in New Hampshire, it's in the 30s, but that's only for 4 chemicals. There are over 14,000 PFAS chemicals. So we also got filtration of our public water supply. We did a great campaign, but the town of Merrimack had to pay $14 million for this filtration system. That company didn't. They haven't paid anything. They haven't paid for filtration. They haven't paid for the town water, the public water, the private wells. So this all, I thought as a water warrior, I knew all about PFAS. I thought I was protecting my family. I thought I was protecting people in our town. I had my well tested in 2021. The results were even higher than it was in 2016. So what is going on? We found out that this company What they do is they create fabric that is coated with this PFAS chemical, and this fabric is used in our astronaut suits, because you don't want permeability, obviously, if you're in space. That wouldn't be a good thing. So there is a reason for this, but what they do with their wastewater is they threw it out into the local system. They put it down the drains, they're next to a river, they contaminated the river, and they also incinerated their waste product every night. So when you incinerate, you get particulates that come out of the air stats every single night. PFAS doesn't get broken down by heat. It is a forever chemical. That's what it means. The carbon bonds are so strong, you cannot break those bonds. So our town was essentially covered with PFAS every single night. You go out in the morning, you open your car door, you're touching PFAS. It falls down onto the soil, the rain drives it into the ground, the produce uptakes it. So now we've got PFAS in our produce in town. We have PFAS everywhere. I started noticing some things in my family. 6 kids with dyslexia, which is a learning disability that's associated with PFAS. That's a quack. One of my sons at 25 years old had to be discharged from the Army because he had cardiac issues. 25 years old, that's a quack. 5 of my 6 kids have autoimmune issues. That's a quack. My 2 daughters have reproductive issues. That's another quack. And what I'm doing here is there's an expression, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And this company is trying very, very hard to convince us all that it's coincidental, all of these things. I've recently put down my 4th dog. We tend to have little dogs. There's another expression called canary in the coal mine. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. But years ago, before they had monitoring systems, the miners would bring a canary, literally bring a canary in a bird cage down to the mines with them. And if the bird died, that meant they had to get out of there. So that's the canary in the coal mine. It's the small body weight of the bird that got affected before the larger body weights. We got small dogs. We like the little guys, the ones that look like bedroom slippers. Just recently put down my 4th dog because of cancer. That's pretty significant. That's a quack. Our neighbor next door died of kidney cancer. That's a quack. Neighbor up the street, he and his son died of colon cancer. That's another quack. In 2019, my husband had to have open heart surgery. He had to have a quadruple bypass because of very high cholesterol. He's 55, well, at the time he was 55 years old, and I know that sounds ancient to you, but trust me, for cardiac disease, that's quite young. That's a really big quack. Last year, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. These chemicals are hormone-disrupting chemicals. They hit the reproductive areas very, very hard. So, it's not unusual for women to get breast cancer. A lot of us do. There's no history in my family. I've got 3 sisters, my mom, my aunt, no breast cancer. Okay, that could be, right? Had genetic testing, where they test for the BRCA gene and 13 genetic mutations. Nothing showed up, nothing at all. Okay, I talked to the environmental working group in Washington, D.C. I had been doing some PFAS work with them over the years. And they suggested I get my blood tested for PFAS. The test that I took tested for 40 different chemicals. I have 12 PFAS chemicals in my blood that are over the toxic limit that's allowed for human beings. 12. And I thought I was doing the right thing by putting in a filtration system, drinking only bottled water. 12 chemicals. My PFAS chemicals that are associated with breast cancer specifically, I have 38 times the toxic level that's allowed for human beings. My PFOA chemicals, which are associated with ovarian and fallopian tube cancer, I have more than 99% of Americans do in their blood. So last year, one second. Sorry. So last year, in August, I had a mastectomy. I had a bilateral mastectomy, actually. Wasn't going to take the chance that the cancer would pop up in the other breast, and even though the other breast, there was nothing that showed up in testing, I had 4 precancerous conditions from the pathology report. When I gave the results to my physician of my PFAS tests, they didn't know what to do, so they sent me to Dartmouth-Hitchcock at Lebanon, and I met with the oncology department, and they said, you know, we think the best thing that you should do is to prophylactically remove your ovaries and your fallopian tubes. So I had surgery in December to get rid of my ovaries and my fallopian tubes to be prophylactic, which means to stay ahead of the PFAS, because it seemed that based on my blood results, it was a ticking time bomb and it would simply be a matter of time. So this has been quite the experience. You know, to live in our town, we have to amputate parts of our bodies. That's the price. And this company is still discharging PFAS into our water, into our air. They've put on something called thermal scrubbers, which theoretically catches the particulate. But recently, those thermal scrubbers stopped working, and instead of turning off the system, they bypassed the scrubbers. And so, excuse me, they discharged 17 pounds of this stuff into our town. 17 pounds. And again, that's what they self-reported. So I was a state rep in 2018 to 2020. I didn't get in the next term, and then I got reelected this term. So I'm up at the State House. I'm on the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee. And I'm also so involved with PFAS. So I put 2 bills in this year. One was that real estate agents would be mandated to inform potential buyers that there was PFAS in the water. I mean, wouldn't you want to know that a house that you are buying could kill you? That was held back in committee. The lobbyists fought it because they knew that real estate agents would probably lose some sales if they had to tell people that there was a dangerous chemical in the house, which is insane. Another bill that I introduced, and it was held back in committee, would be that insurance companies would have to pay for prophylactic PFAS care. Now, what does that mean? It means if your blood is tested and you're above 20 nanoparticles, or 20 parts per million, that would set off testing for the rest of your life. So if a pregnant mother is tested and she's above the 20 PPT level, that means that her baby would be tested. If the baby is above 20 parts per trillion, then that means that you start screening them for learning disabilities at birth. You start screening them for cholesterol at age 1. This stuff does not play around. It is deadly. And I know in the movie that you just saw, they were talking about 70 parts per trillion. That's not what we have in New Hampshire because of the work we did in 2018 and 20. We're down in the 30s because we knew that 70 wasn't too much. 30 is still too much. There is no safe level of PFAS in your water or your food. So what can you do about it? The first thing is that you educate yourself. You know what PFAS is. You test your water. You check and you make sure things are safe. they talked about Gore-Tex. We love Gore-Tex, right? When we go camping, it's what keeps us dry in our tents and our jackets. That's fine. If you're going to use it when you go camping, use it when you go camping, but when you come home, don't wear that Gore-Tex jacket to the grocery store. You don't need it. Keep it in the closet. If you live in a town that we live in, where you've got air contamination, you know, wash your pet's feet. Vacuum the floor, vacuum the rug when the pets come in, because you're just tracking it in through your footwear. Glide dental floss. We love that stuff, right? Because it doesn't catch on your teeth and it's slippery. The reason it's slippery is it uses PFAS. Throw it away. Do not use that. That's particularly nasty because when you use dental floss, sometimes you're creating little fissures in your gums, and you bleed sometimes when you might have gone to the dentist and they do dental floss and you bleed. When you bleed, you're introducing PFAS directly into your blood system. Get rid of Glide. You know, and read about these things. I mean, this is your life that you need to protect. So there's another thing that I'm very concerned with, and that's that PFAS it interconnects with social justice. Because these companies don't go into the affluent neighborhoods. They go into the neighborhoods that have lower incomes, lower educational levels. And that's what happens. This company, Saint-Gobain, it's actually a French company. They're headquartered in France. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. They were up, and I know that people have to go for the bus. They were up in Vermont, contaminated a town in Vermont. Vermont kicked them out. So they moved to Hoosick Falls in New York State, did the exact same thing, contaminated that town. They kicked them out, and they moved to New Hampshire because we don't have the regulations to stop them. So, I know that people are leaving for the bus, so. So the coughing, I'm not sick. I've had more surgery recently, and I have to sleep in a reclining chair, which is on the first floor. And I guess I have not done a good job of dusting or getting rid of the dog hair. So that's why I keep coughing. Anyway, so I tell you this story, I'm not interested in your sympathy. I've got a tremendous support system. You know, we're doing what we can, we're bonding together in our town, we're supporting each other. I'm not here for your sympathy, I am here for your outrage. That's what is going to change the future. People who realize that this is not fair. People are getting sick. People in my town are dying. Kids are dying. We are losing so many of our pets because, again, the small body weight. We have an incredible amount of special ed kids because of the learning disabilities. It's horrific. It's horrific. So what can you do? You can link arms with other organizations. Almost every organization has, with social justice. PFAS in housing. You know, they tend to put these companies where there's concentrated housing and apartments. So it involves housing, education. I mean, there's a big push right now to defund public school. This is where you learn things. This is where you have activities like this, where you hear different people's points of view. You know, so there's an awful lot. There's an awful lot to this. So there's a few more minutes. Any questions? Any comments? Oh yes, yes. So you're saying public water? Yeah. Yes, okay. Public water systems, you can go onto the public water site and they have to test on a regular basis and they have to put it on the website.
Okay.
They do report, but you have to be careful. So even in our town, we have filtration on some of our wells. So the water coming out of the filtration device, which is, you know, when I say device, I'm talking about a building, it's PFAS free, but then it's going through this ancient infrastructure that is contaminated with PFAS. Same thing with the filtration system in our house. You know, so it's called a POET system, it's a point of entry. The water comes in, it goes through our filtration system, it comes out, it's clean, and then it's going through all of these contaminated pipes. So it's still really not safe. The absolute way that you can protect yourself is to have something called a reverse osmosis filtration system. And that's one single device, and we put it in our kitchen. And that's the only way you can ensure that your water is absolutely clean. The other thing with the filtration systems, so we have a whole house filtration system. It wasn't quite like the one that she was talking about, but we have a couple of big tanks. We have to replace those filters. It's about $500 to replace them. We have to do it every 6 months. What do we do with those filters? There's no way to get rid of them. We throw them into the landfill. We throw them into the transfer station. And that's one of the reasons why there's such a big hoopla. And hoopla, I don't mean to minimize it at all, with landfills near bodies of water, because you're going to have these filtration systems. You're going to have Gore-Tex jackets that are, you know, that have holes in them that people have thrown away. You're going to have Scotch Guard. You're going to have things like that. You know, it's going to leach out, and it's going to, especially near water, it's going to get into the water. And like a tube of toothpaste, once you get the toothpaste out of the tube, there's no way you can get it back in. Once you detect PFAS in the water, it's too late. There's no way to get rid of it. I mean, I'm talking about big bodies of water. No, you can't filter a lake. In the Great Lakes, where this film sort of was taking place, they did a study to, if you eat one fish that you've caught in these contaminated waters, that's equivalent to drinking a month's worth of PFAS infected water. We can't, I mean, our fish are in our area. We've got, you know, catch and release. People are hungry right now. They're catching fish and they're eating it. You know, it's again, the social justice. It's all intertwined. Are there any other questions? Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. Makeup has tons of PFAS in it. So I mentioned a group before, yeah. In fact, we've been trying to, there's a bill that was just passed recently called Amanda's Bill. It wasn't in New Hampshire. And it was a young woman who was dying of cancer, PFAS-related cancer. And we're trying to get rid of products in New Hampshire that have PFAS, and that includes makeup. So I think that down in Washington, they're doing some bills on that one. But PFAS, because it repels and it's used in the Teflon pans, you'll see it very often in hamburger wrappers. You'll see it in pizza boxes. Those all have PFAS in them. You've got to stop. Well, you shouldn't, guys, you shouldn't be eating fast food anyway. But you've got to stop using that stuff. There are some companies that are making changes. For example, what was it? One of the burrito places, they had PFAS bowls because, you know, it doesn't absorb. It keeps the sauce and everything from getting into the paper and everything. It was discovered that there was a high level of PFAS in these bowls, so they went to paper bowls. I mean, how much is going to be absorbed when you sit down and eat fast food anyway? So, you know, you can make change. You can force companies to make changes like that, but it's going to take a while. Are there any other questions? Okay.
We want to thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.